You're listening to Let's Stay Together, a podcast about Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
I'm Kayla. That was very enthusiastic.
It was. Because, you know what? Seamless segue into my announcement, which is that we're getting very close to the end of the series. There are two episodes left, plus a finale that we're planning to do, just like how we had a mid-series special. Hold on, let me just fact check myself. 1 second. I changed the schedule a lot after we started isolating. That's why there's so many things where we're like, now we do 4 chapters because there's time. Although Kayla knows that I'm still late every time, so it's fine. But yeah, there's two episodes and then a finale. So my announcement is that we will take questions just like we did for the mid-series special. So if you've been patiently waiting, you weren't listening when the mid-series special came out, but you listened to it and then you patiently waited and you're like, I have a question. Now is the time. So we have, like I said, we have 2 episodes left that'll come out after this. We'll be recording the finale during the week of, in the middle of July. It's the week of July 13th, also according to my notes. So if you want to send us a question, we answered in the mid-series special. If you didn't listen to it, I answered questions about the series. We answered questions about the series so far, but now it'll be the end, so we can say whatever we want. There'll be no more spoilers. And we answered some questions about the anime adaptation so far, or versus the 2001. We answered questions about us and also about podcasting. So if you have any questions at all, we will consider them for being answered. I think we answered all of the questions last time. None of them were crazy.
Yeah. Please interrogate us again.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Actually, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, please do. And we'll do a discussion of the series at large. I'll do a super fast summary like I did last time, except now it'll be twice as much content in the same amount of time, I guess. It'll be a good time.
Just string all your summaries together, but play it at 100 times speed.
Of every single episode?
That's our series, yes.
Did you enjoy Furuba? So some of the summaries must be very long. They're 20 or 30 minutes each. Basically half of these episodes are just me rereading Furuba to everyone. So especially this one, because there's an actual old time, a fairy tale story
time with Ellen.
And I started to write it out, and I was like, there's no point in describing it because the dialogue describes what's happening in a story. It's a fairy tale story. So anyway, so yeah, I'll be reading the Zodiac story later to everyone. I hope everyone's ready. Get yourself some warm milk and tuck yourself into bed. Yes. We're having a bedtime story this time.
I was gonna make that same joke.
Really?
Yeah, I was gonna say tuck yourselves in.
What the hell? Every once in a while, the stars align and we make exactly the same joke at the same time. So, yeah. Anyway, so please send us your questions. It was really fun last time.
Questions, comments.
Yeah.
Concerns, but we can't really do anything about it since it's the end.
It'll be the last episode. Burning things that you just absolutely hated that you want us to know about.
Yeah. And one more thing.
Yeah. And by the way, I hated it how you voice acted Ritsu screaming.
Yeah.
Too many Ayame quotes. Not enough screaming.
Yeah. It's 7 out of 10, not enough screaming.
I hated how your recording quality was terrible for the first 15 episodes and then moderately improved for the last, 50. I don't know how many people have listened to every single episode, but I went back and listened to the first one because I wanted to, in preparation for the end, because we had set out some things that we wanted to understand better, which I'm planning to ask you about, so be prepared. But I listened to them again, and I was like, how did anyone ever listen to this? What the hell? What were we doing? Who am I? Anyway.
I've heard worse.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
In the podcast realm, so.
The thing that bothered me most was, I feel like these summaries now are very buttoned down. And the first one was and then she goes here, and then there's a tent, and then Shigure says this. And, that's literally what it was like. And I was like, I am dying. I can't listen to myself and talk like this. So, even though they're long...
There's an art to summarizing.
For sure. I learned it the hard way. Very slowly. And I don't know if these are actually summaries, but... Yeah, anyway.
We're recaps.
Recap. There is. And I think anyway, yeah, for sure.
Personally, I like recaps better than some, a 2-line description, and then you're
summary's too short? Yeah, my summary...
I don't remember what happened.
That's why I make these super long, because like I'm the kind of person who would listen to this and be like, I'm not reading that, I know what happens. But there's so many like intricate things that happen in this series that I'm like, no, I have to say this because I want the people to know. I want you to hear right before we talk about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, but so I also prefer that. That's why they're long. Anyway, but if you hated it, you can let us know in your questions that you send for the thing. Oh, I think I didn't. The first time, I don't remember if I said where we were actually collecting them, because I remember getting like an email or two that were like, I don't know if this is the right place to send this. So you can send us an email to staytogetherpodcast@gmail.com. You can send an ask on Tumblr, which I do check regularly. We haven't gotten any asks in a long time, though. We also have Twitter, and our handle is @staytogetherpod. You can send a direct message. Trying to think of what else do we have. Oh, there's a form on our website. So at staytogetherpodcast.com, there's a form. You can use that to submit. Carrier pigeon, etc.
I was gonna say that too.
Damn it!
Carrier pigeon.
Sorry, I'll stop making I'll say one less sentence, then you can make the joke that I'm gonna make. How does that sound? Yeah. Anyway, okay, so we're doing that. I just want everybody to have a heads up, so you have time to ruminate on your questions.
We don't accept. It's like, actually, we don't accept carrier pigeon. We have trained hawks to kill them out in the sky. Just like the Nazis.
They could be spies. Yeah, I was gonna say. For every espionage attempt, you have to have counter-espionage. Everybody knows that. That's just the basics of spying.
Spying arms war.
Yeah, pigeon arms war. Spying, like, wings war, I guess. It's not an arms race. It's a wings race. Wait, you're not going to make that joke? You're like, I would never. All right, anyway, let's do this. It's a long summary, and there's a bedtime story at the end, so I hope everybody's ready.
Yay.
Yay. Chapter 128 opens at the main house. Kakeru notices Kisa standing outside of Akito's, like, part of the house that she lives in. It says, like, Akito's mansion. I don't know, whatever. I don't know if they're individual houses.
Chambers.
Yeah, Akito's apartment.
Akito's lair.
Akito's lair, for sure. Akito's lair. Kisa says that she's there for moral support. Inside, Hiro talks to Akito. She says that he's tactless and has no judgment, but keeps pushing to get what he wants. Still, she says, I never disliked that about you. At school, Yuki, Haru, and Kyo talk. Akito has called a meeting, including Kyo, at the main house next week. They wonder what it'll be about. Haru says that Akito is different now. He's been fighting stuff. The inside people look confused, too. It's kinda vindicating, he finishes, and Yuki chuckles. Yeah, kind of, he says. Yuki wonders if Akito is fighting things alone. Haru asks how Shigure is. Yuki says that he's been out a lot lately. Yuki's like, ah? Kyo's like, ah? And Haru's like, Kyo is like, what? And Yuki is like, I mean, oh, right, I forgot. Hearing the stupid voice of an idiot reminded me. And Kyo is like, you're really not holding back these days, huh? And Yuki says that they say teasing is a sign of affection, then finally spills the beans that Tohru's getting out of the hospital tomorrow. You only remembered that now? Kyo shouts and bolts. And Yuki's like, so sorry. Haru tells Yuki that he heard the catch room is going to be destroyed. I wonder if that means he'll be a little free, if he can be with Honda-san. Yuki smiles. Kyo runs straight to Hana and Uo, and still panting, he shouts, so it's okay, right? For me to go pick her up? And they're like, the prince told you already? That's no fun. It's fine, but you can't get upset if she runs away. I mean, she does think that you dumped her and all. Kyo promises to make an effort, and they're like, do it now. And they try to get him to pick out some clothes for her as a gift. And then they're like, maybe we shouldn't do this. She might not wear it if she knows that you picked it out. I mean, she thinks that you dumped her.
I love how the dialogue boxes are, like, pushing against his face.
Yes, it's him. It's so good. I just wrote, bless these panels in my notes. They're so wonderful. Anyway, meanwhile, in the student council room, Yuki thinks that he's jealous of Kyo and Tohru. Machi hands him some paperwork, and he comments that she finished it quickly. With a blush and a shy smile, she says that she worked a little harder on it than usual. Yuki looks at his hand. Hana-san knows that Kyo's not a normal person, and has for a while, but in my case... He grabs Machi's arm. She turns back with a wide-eyed expression, and Yuki says with intensity, Machi, if... Has anyone seen Kimi's brush? Kimi says, opening the door and interrupting, and Kakeru follows her to the room. No one has seen it. Machi turns away blushing, embarrassed. Yuki looks dismayed. I have to tell her. If I want to stay with her, then I have to tell her the one thing she may or may not accept. At the main house, Akito looks out the window, and Shigure reads. They talk. Shigure asks if she's planning to hold a banquet. I'm going to end it, Akito says, and she thinks of Momiji Kureno and Hiro's curses being broken. As long as you're satisfied, that's what's most important, Shigure says. You're relieved like the rest of them, aren't you? Akito asks. You'll be released from me. You can leave and go wherever you please. If it means I'll be free from your bad behavior, then I will be relieved, Shigure says, putting down his book. And Akito says that she's had it with everyone looking down on her. I'm not looking down on you, he says, coming closer and putting a bag on the windowsill beside her. I'm teasing you. Don't get those things confused. Akito's about to protest, but he cuts her off. A gift. I guess you can call it a farewell present. She eyes him suspiciously, and he smiles a soft smile. She looks like she's touched. The next day, the bundle of nerves, otherwise known as Kyo, makes his way to the hospital, wishing that Yuki hadn't seen him so flustered earlier, and we see breakfast time earlier. Yuki's like, hey. I said hey, and Kyo's like, bah! And drops his toast. Yuki sasses that he should be leaving soon, and Kyo asks if Yuki will be coming as well. He says that he wouldn't want to get in the way of their long-awaited reunion, and he has other plans. Don't screw this up. Just be your stupid normal self, he says, and Kyo is like, whatever you say. On his way to the hospital, in the present, he thinks, right, be normal. What was it like? How did I used to talk to her? For some reason I don't know anymore. And will she still accept me? So much happened and she thinks that I dumped her. He grimaces. And what about me? Do I still like her? What do I like about her? And what do I like about that? And how much do I like it? He arrives at the front of the hospital and sees Uo and Hana, and they gesture for Tohru to come closer, and then point to Kyo. Kyo and Tohru see each other for the first time since the accident. Tohru's in her new outfit and fancy shoes, and she blushes. Oh, he thinks, completely taken aback. Man, none of that matters at all. I love her. I love her so much I could die. Tohru, he says, and tears well in her eyes. She flings the discharge papers in the air and bolts. Kyo, Hana, and Uo are shocked. Kyo drops to his knees like, did she run away? And Uo was like, I guess all he can do is laugh. And Hana's like, can I laugh as well? Damn it, I'm faster than she is, he says, and takes off determinedly. Hana and Uo smile. I won't let her get away this time, he thinks. At Shigure's house, Yuki looks out the window. He calls Machi and apologizes for calling her suddenly. He asks if they can meet. There's something I really want you to hear, he says. Back on the streets, Kyo thinks, I could die, I want her so bad, as he chases after her. The hell, he says? You were just in the hospital, stop running like a crazy person! And that's the end of chapter 128. I love when she runs away, it's so wonderful. So good. Chapter 129 opens from Tohru's perspective. She narrates that her feet just carried her away from Kyo on their own. This wasn't what I planned at all. I made a decision that when I saw him again, I was going to smile. Kyo catches up to her, grabbing a pole and swinging around in front of her, and he calls her name again. Ah! She screams and runs away again. Onlookers, including a cat, are like, did you get dumped? But Kyo takes off again with determination afterward. It's been a long time since we saw a cat commenting on Kyo's life. Tohru remembers telling Kyo, it's okay, before passing out after falling, and she thinks, I can't do it, it's all over. I know there's nothing left for me to do. She remembers Yuki visiting her in the hospital. She smiles and says she's doing well. Yuki starts to talk about Kyo, and when he looks over again, she's crying. Tohru panics and apologizes and smacks her face. Yuki's like, hey, cut it out! You're in here because you hit your head! Tohru tries to change the subject by asking if things are okay at home, but the tears keep falling. My chest hurts, she thinks. The sound of his name is like a knife in my heart. She remembers him saying, I'm disillusioned. Later on the hospital roof patio, she thinks about Momiji, about Hana and Uo visiting her. I can't keep not letting go. I'll only trouble them. Everyone. And Kyokun. I can't do that no matter what. She grips the fence on the patio and cries and tells herself, smile, smile. Don't forget, she thinks, when you see him one more time, you have to smile. In the present, she finally slumps down on a planter. I trained myself, or so I thought. What a wasted effort, she says. Really, I can't do anything right, she thinks. I wasn't lying when I said that it's okay. Even if I'm not by his side, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let it bother me. Kyo approaches and she sees him and frowns. Tears well in her eyes again. But I want to be by his side. Not being with him breaks my heart. I can't control it. Please wait, she says, rubbing her eyes. Soon I'll... Stop crying, she thinks. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want him to hate me. I don't want him to be disillusioned anymore. Kyo gently pulls her hand away from her face, and she looks up at him. He kneels on the sidewalk in front of her. I was only thinking about myself and my own regrets. I completely ignored your feelings, he says. I should have known that this world doesn't always give you a chance to apologize. I can't let that happen again. He thinks of Kyoko. If I did, that would be like I never did learn. I'm sorry for making you cry, he says, and takes her hand. I hurt you a lot. I'm sorry. This is the last time. I don't need another. Will you give me just this one last chance? I want to be with you. If I'm going to keep living, then I want to be with you. I don't want anyone else because I love you. Tohru's eyes widen and a moment passes between them. Does that mean I can stay? I can stay with you? I can hold your hand and be with you? Kyo smiles and says, "You're already holding it." Tears fall. Tohru sobs. Tens of times, hundreds of times, I can hear those words over and over again, she thinks. And now this is really like being in a dream. With a tender expression, Kyo wipes away her tears and he kisses her. "By the way, you know this is our second time, right?" he says. And she's like, "What? When?" And Kyo thinks she really doesn't remember now. It's like I attacked her in her sleep. "Try to remember, okay? If you really can't, that's pretty depressing, right?" he says. And she's like, "Oh, right." He takes her arm and pulls her to her feet. "Can I hold you?" he asks. "I know I'll lose my human form after. If we're together, the curse is still between us." "Kyo-kun," she says, "didn't you know? I really do love you. I really do. And that feeling is invincible." She smiles a bright, reassuring smile and chuckles. "Oh, then I guess I'm invincible too. There's nothing more for me to be scared of, right? As long as I have you," he says with a bright smile as well. Tohru tears up and he takes her hands and pulls her into a tight hug. Then, nothing happens. The chapter closes on Akito looking out of a window with the narration. Goodbye.
Dun, dun, dun.
Nothing happened. It was just a normal hug. Who knew that could be so dramatic? Chapter 130 opens earlier, in the hospital. Akito says that she was jealous of Tohru. "You are more beautiful than me," she says. "I'm not beautiful," Tohru says. "Please don't divide things into categories like beautiful or not. When you do that, you just separate yourself out. You say that I'm beautiful? You are too, Akito-san. You cried because you were lonely and scared. You were so painfully innocent and pure. I was trying to destroy the world that you wish for. It doesn't matter if it was right or wrong. It doesn't change the fact that I hurt you a lot, Akito-san, but even so." In the present, Kyo and Tohru stand wide-eyed. They let go of each other and Kyo looks at his hands. At the main house, Akito looks up, then falls to her knees. "It's okay now, right?" she says. "Father, it's okay. I don't have to be special anymore. I don't have to be God. I can just be me, right? I can start down my own path. I'm so hurt and scared. I know what I don't have." Akito cries. "I know I don't have anything redeeming about me, but..." And then we see the narration. Goodbye. Kyo steps away from Tohru and turns away, and he raises his hand to his head, then looks down at the bracelet on his left arm. He grabs the beads and pulls it hard, snapping it, and the beads scatter everywhere. Kyo looks up to the sky, tears in his eyes, and Tohru sobs, and Kyo's tears fall. We see the narration again overlaid over white flowers. Goodbye. At Ayame's shop, he lounges on a couch and looks out the window. "Mine," he says. "Mine." She comes from the kitchen. "What would you like? More tea?" she asks cheerfully. He stands and takes her arm from behind and holds her. "Mine, I was born for a reason," he says. "I wish to love you. I can finally tell you that." The narration again is repeated. Goodbye. At the hot spring, Ritsu drops a vase. His mom, the Okami-san, asks if he's all right. He covers his mouth with his hand in shock and cries. And we see the narration again. It's lonely to say goodbye. Kisa, who's playing with Hiro and Hinata, suddenly drops the Mogeta toy that she was holding and cries, and Kagura, walking down the sidewalk, suddenly starts to cry. The narration continues. Partings are the beginning of new meetings. Beginnings happen because they're endings. Not now, I don't want to hear those simple cliches. We see Haru and Rin together. Rin cries and reaches out to touch Haru's cheek. "Huh," he says. "In a way, it is pretty depressing." And they hug. Elsewhere, Hattori suddenly cries and Shigure stops on the street, hand to his chest. "Huh, so this is how it feels," he says. We see Akito, head buried in her hands. What I think is Akito's narration continues. "Please, cry with me. Maybe there's nothing we can do about this, but at least for now cry with me, like your entire body is screaming at the sky, like it's raging against the world. I lost something. I don't have a single guarantee. The fear of living in this world again after that. I only have a shred of hope to sustain me. So I want you to at least cry. Cry with me like the day you were first born into this world." We see imagery of hands opening, as if releasing something, and a texture kind of like energy flowing in white flowers. Kyo and Tohru cry and hold each other again. Akito remembers visiting Tohru in the hospital again. "But despite all that, Akito-san," Tohru says in the memory, "I still hope that I can be your friend. Please?" She extends her hand to Akito. "You never give up, do you?" Akito says. And Akito's narration continues. Meetings, beginnings, it's not too late to believe in them after the fact. She imagines the same figure touching her head, then departing upward. She remembers Tohru smiling at the hospital, and her narration finishes. Smile. Elsewhere, Yuki waits for Machi. He feels a little weird, but maybe he's just nervous. Machi meets up with him and apologizes for keeping him waiting, and he apologizes for the short notice. "It's okay, you said it was important, so," she says. "Yeah," Yuki says, "there's something I have to tell." "You're the last," we see the narration. Yuki looks shocked, and Machi asks if he's okay, and he starts to cry suddenly. The narration continues. "Thank you for keeping the very distant promise. A rat runs to the hands of the figure that we saw earlier, the god of the zodiac. The chapter closes on God surrounded by all the animals of the zodiac, and the narration, thank you, and goodbye.
Dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Oh, I wonder if I said which chapters we were doing this time. Oh well, whatever.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out by now. Chapter 131 opens in the countryside on a hill. A long time ago, a tiny house stands at the top of the hill, and a person looks out of the window of the house. And we see the narration. Once upon a time, in a particular place, there lived a person. The person was alone for a long time. After leaving the mountain, this person learned that many people lived below, but the person was still alone. Even with 1,000 powers, 1,000 lives, 1,000 memories, the person learned that such things were very different than what most people had, and thus developed a fear of other people, a fear of getting hurt. Despite having many powers, the person was afraid of being different from others. One day, a cat came to visit. The person was bewildered by the sudden visitor. The cat bowed his head and said, I've humbly watched you for a long time. You're a very mysterious person. I can't stop being attracted to you. I'm merely a stray cat, but please let me stay by your side. Please, Lord God. From that time on, the cat kept his promise and never left God's side, not even for a moment. That made God very happy. Suddenly, God had an idea. Maybe I can get along with others as long as the others aren't people. If they know the feelings that I do, maybe I can have a pleasant banquet with them. God wrote many, many invitations and sent them, and 12 animals came to see God. God was surrounded by 13 in total. They all held a banquet every time the moon sparkled. They sang and danced, and God, too, laughed out loud for the first time. The moon quietly watched over the inhuman banquet. But one night, the cat collapsed. Nothing could be done. His life had run out. They all cried. It made them realize that someday everyone would die. The banquet would come to an end no matter how much they enjoyed them. Someday they would, no matter how dazzling and precious they were. God recited a single chant and drew a circle on a sake cup. God made the cat drink and then spoke to everyone. Our bond, I'll make it eternal now. Even if we die and rot away, we'll be tied together by this eternal bond. However many times we die, however many times we're reborn, just as before, we'll have our countless banquets. We'll be friends until the end of time. We'll be permanent. Everyone nodded emphatically. The rat was first to drink, then the ox, then the tiger, then the rabbit. All in order, they shared the drink of their vow. When finally the boar drank, the cat started to cry. His breath was very faint. My Lord God, why did you make me drink this? My Lord, I don't want eternity. I don't need permanence. Those words were unexpected, and to God and the others they were words of rejection. It devastated them. They scolded and admonished the cat, and even so the cat spoke, my Lord God, I know it's frightening, but let us accept that things end. I know it's sad, but let us accept that lives depart. I know that it was only for a short time, but I was happy with you. If we both die and are reborn again and meet again, I don't want to only see you in the moonlight. I want to see you smiling under the light of the sun as well. Next time, I don't want to meet with only those of us here. I want to meet with you while you're smiling with a ring of people. With that, the cat twitched his tail for the last time and died. But no one cared about the cat anymore. They were filled with the sense that the cat had betrayed them. Sometime after that, one after the others died. And finally, after the dragon died, God was left alone. And then even God died. But God wasn't afraid, because God was supported by the promise made with the others. Again, we'll hold our banquet again and again as many times as we want, for as long as we wish, without changing. I may be sad and alone now, but everything is waiting on the other side of our promise. We see the narration. Now that's a tale from a long time ago. Everyone has forgotten their first memories of that promise. In the present, Yuki cries and he apologizes. I just said goodbye to someone who was with me for a long time. We were together, but being together was really difficult. It was more like a burden than a blessing, but now we're apart. Damn it, it's not fair for me to be like this. You won't ever see this person again, Machi asks. No, I'm sure of it, he says, but in exchange I was given freedom. Yuki hugs her tight. I'm sorry, you must be really confused. This isn't exactly what I wanted to tell you, but whatever. Right now, this is enough. Actually, Machi says, blushing intensely, there's something I wanted to ask you too. What? He says. Is it okay if I call you by your name? She asks. Of course it's okay. Say it, he says. Yuki, she says. He holds her chin and says, one more time. Yuki, she says. They kiss, and Yuki pulls back and smiles. There are tears in both their eyes. As many times as you want, he says. And we see the narration, that first promise, at what point did it become a curse? When did it change into a burden? Those days that were so happy, they were so hard to part with. There was supposed to be love there. Time passed, people changed, and it became nothing but pain. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all of you who continue to shoulder that exhausted promise. The promise that lost its original form. The most important thing I want to tell you is thank you. Thank you. Kyo and Tohru go to visit Shisho, and when he sees Kyo without the bracelet, he pulls him into a tight hug. Hataru and Rin, who are also there, come up behind them in the hallway, and it looks like Haru tells a shocked Tohru the good news about him and Rin as well. Tohru turns to Kyo and grabs his sleeve. Kyo, Shisho, and Tohru go to the main house. They stand outside a large traditional door. A hand reaches out and grabs Toru's shirt. She flails and then gets pulled into the room, and Akito hugs her tight. A story of long ago, the first memories that everyone forgot. It wasn't until much later, that the cat's wish was finally granted. And chapter closes on God's hand rubbing the cat's chin. And that's the end of 131.
Aww.
Yay! It was good. This is all the pain we suffered through was for this moment.
Yes. All the payoff.
All the payoff. Only a year and a half of reading this story together, and now we're here.
Come so far.
I think in the spoilers that recently I said I can't read these chapters without reading all of them at the same time, like all the way through. Like it just runs right into the next one, and they're also like nice and touching. The narration is interesting. There's this like running narration through 130, chapter 130, which I said I think is Akito's, but it could be a mix of like Akito and like the god spirit, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's the one that keeps saying like goodbye, goodbye over and over again. And
yeah, I feel like it's supposed to come off as both of those. Like we've talked about how we've had a lot of those
it seems
lately,
like...
where there's like a narration that's like
yes.
probably belongs to one person, but is obviously deliberately meant to apply to multiple characters. So, like it's probably technically Akito's narration, but it's obviously meant to like apply to God as well.
Especially because it then transitions into the next chapter, which is like shows the story, the actual, like the true story of the original Zodiac promise.
Yeah.
And like why they ended up being this way, having this curse. It's funny because in a way, we talked so many times about eating meals together and how that was a thing that I talked about over and over again. But I find it really interesting in this that like the theme of having this like a meal representing your relationship came back like really hardcore in the story. So they end up having this banquet, and it says they had a banquet over and over again. But the thing that I noticed is like I said, I didn't describe the story, what's happening in the story, because like the narration kind of describes it. But one thing that I noticed is like at the end where it's like, oh, then the dragon died and then God eventually died, you can see like the house at the end of the story is all like decrepit. It's like old and run down, and like even the like dishes and the plates and stuff are also like old and like decayed almost. And I think it's interesting how that shows the transition of like the bond that they had as being good to something even at that time becoming more and more negative, right? Like at the quote unquote like time of the story, the time that the curse was, or the bond was formed.
Yeah, like it had probably like
the magic started.
Yeah, probably like even by that point it had probably already started to seem like a not so happy obligation at that point, where it's like, you know, you're watching your friends die off one by one and still coming together with the ones that are left to have a party? Question mark.
Question mark. I was also like, I wonder how long dragons live. Like, I wonder how long that was. I don't know. I can't.
Longer than any of the animals, but not as long as God.
God, yeah. I mean, yeah. Basically, this sort of like I feel like the decaying of the house and stuff represents that unnaturalness of the bond. I mean, there's also like the use of like texture when the cat is talking and the cat's like, I didn't want to be a part of this, yo, and like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Something that I noticed I'd never noticed before when reading this.
Yeah, it is kind of like we talk about how like the series shows like the contrast between like positive and negative bonds as like a repeated thing. It's also kind of like the good meals together and like that endless banquet kind of contrast too in the same way. Of course, sort of representing those concepts. Because like the idea of the whole endless banquet has been around for a lot of the series, like basically since Akito started getting a more prominent like appearances, because she's the one who's always talking about the endless banquet
and keeping others out.
Yeah,
I guess, and that as a symbol of that, I guess. I noticed another thing about the about the banquet, which is still a small thing, but it's like the rooster and the dog that are dancing, which I thought was hilarious. Did you notice that?
I didn't, because it's right in the crease, so I never really like parsed what was going on
Oh
until I
yeah,
saw
I
your
know.
note. Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, "Is it?" And then it was, and I thought that was
Yeah,
funny.
that's funny. It's also just
I don't know if there's extra symbolism. It's just
Yeah.
kind of funny.
it's kind of funny just because of the whole comment about how awkward that would be in the present day, but also it's kind of a nice little
Yes,
like,
exactly.
yeah, it's kind of a nice little like nod to the whole like the traditional New Year's dance like being started back then.
Yeah, exactly. There was there was good your white feather, white petal imagery, especially so another thing that I never really noticed when I was reading this before, because like I guess I just wasn't paying attention, is like the imagery of God sort of like releasing the zodiac, like the curse being released, that's peppered throughout the chapter before we like see the old story. So it's like the hands, you see the hands in that scene. Like I always notice the like flowers and stuff, but I don't know why I never really like processed that it's like the hands in like the outfit that God is wearing, and like touching Akito's head and almost like leaving at the end of the chapter. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I love the touching Akito's head, because it's like God is releasing her as well, like after she's released everyone else.
It does seem like that.
Yeah, it's like you get to be free too. Like this is just you giving up everything.
Yeah, and Akito looking up. Also on that page you have like Tohru smiling, and then you have like the petals and stuff, so it's like forming a new bond with like being, it's like whatever, like the cat wished for, to be surrounded by other people. So
I also like how like with the story we see that like what started the banquets was like God being afraid of like being different from other people, and like, you know, not being able to connect with other people. And like it's the same thing that's like kept the bond going all this time, because like we know that like it's Akito's fear that has like you know, kept her clinging so desperately to all this. And you have to assume it was a similar thing for all the previous incarnations.
Yeah, I think so. I thought that was also really interesting, because it's also something I never really noticed before. That's like in the story, the detail that like God was afraid of, like God realized that there was something that there were powers that normal people didn't have, and that like made God afraid and stuff like that. It's very interesting. And then it becomes Akito's, all the things that she said recently are like, I don't know how to be with other people, like I'm afraid of not having a guarantee. Like it almost seems like Akito was afraid of people not liking her in the story, but it seems like it stems from something like deeper, like not of being hated for having something that other people don't have or something like that, and being found out, I guess. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I talked about it a lot when we did the true form arc, but like it makes me
right.
Everything that Cat Spirit has gone through makes me so sad. Like
I know.
Like he was the first one to come to God's side, and was the like most loyal companion, and wanted God to be like, you know, happy with and meet other people and everything, and it's just like everyone saw it as a betrayal, and they became like a scapegoat.
Yes. It's even like the cat's like dying, and they're like, but they didn't care anymore. Like in the narration, I was like, that's so harsh. Yeah. Like so mean. And yeah, the cat came to be God's companion, and because he thought that God was interesting and worthy of spending time with, and then everyone shunned the cat after being like, no, I don't want things to be permanent. I think we just need to like accept that things are going to change. Like it's okay. Don't need to be afraid of change. And everybody was like, fuck you, basically. Yeah. If I had to describe it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is sad. It's sad what happened to the cat spirit. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But it does make it a really, really nice touch at the where this chapter ends with like God and the cat being happily reunited.
Giving Scritch's most important bonding moment.
Yes.
I was like, oh, the cat. Oh, he's getting a pet. And yeah, they were reunited. I guess it's implied that like the cat's, because the cat's like out of the, well, it's like almost, I guess like God had left Akito last, right? So then rejoined all the other spirits who had already been released, perhaps. Yeah,
I just love the ending with the like, until much, much later the cat's wish was finally granted with, Akito making friends with Tohru.
Yeah. in the light.
Yes.
Yeah, I think also we just talked in our anime episode about how like dark the main house is always represented in like darkness, like the bond and the curse and the family and stuff is always represented that way. But I do think like I'm just double checking to see if I'm gonna eat my words, but I'm pretty sure like that last scene is kind of, I mean, it's in the main house, but it looks so much brighter. And like Akito's like standing in the window while releasing the zodiac and stuff like that too. Did you notice that Akito's wearing a this isn't about the zodiac story, but Akito's wearing like a floral like sash or like obi or whatever, as opposed to just a plain one. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never noticed that before too. Like she's maybe trying to like dress a little bit more femininely, like inside the main house. I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of seems like she's like sort of like tentatively sort of like trying that out, like because like
trying on that identity a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because like even some of her like her outfits like earlier in like these recent chapters are like they're kind of like they're not like really either way. They're kind of neutral.
Yeah, they're not particularly masculine, but they're not super feminine, but they're not particularly masculine either. Like especially I'm thinking of the one where she goes to the like the hospital because she's wearing like a sweater and stuff. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like a unisex outfit, but I think like the way that she wears it is a little like feminine in some way. I don't know, it's just a subtle something about it.
It's like compared to
I don't
like,
even know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's like compared to one of the like only other times we see her like outside of a like kimono type of outfit is that that like restaurant meeting they went to, and she's like in like a full suit basically. Yeah.
Also, like when she went to the beach house, which was also like just a black on black shirt. I feel like Akito's wearing like denim these days. Something about that seems more like casual feminine than like a like a suit. Yeah. I don't know why. It's like, it's not like, I don't know. It's also not like women can't wear suits. It's just on, it was on her, so it's a conscious choice. Yeah.
It was definitely like a masculine suit to appear masculine. Like
yes, yeah. Big shoulders. But yeah, it's interesting how she's like trying. It seems like she's making taking some steps to like appear more feminine externally also. So I don't know. We don't really get a like insight into like Akito, the way that Akito feels about how she was like raised to like perform in a certain way inside of the family, but like we never really see that. It's just something that seems to come out slowly, like in this chapter and what's coming. No spoilers, I guess.
I feel like it's kind of like at this point, like I don't think she's really thinking about it at this point. Like it's just probably kind of a like, oh, I can do other things. I'll try these other things that I can do. Like, yeah, I feel like a deep dive into how she feels about her like gender identity and presentation is going to be a little ways down the line.
Yes,
she's got other things to.
It's like first I have to stop this person from being in prison for life. I guess that's important. Yeah. I think it's interesting that like we've seen like the Zodiac say before, like Kureno especially said like when they're free from the curse, it's like they have their own identity. So I think that would apply to Akito as well, since we saw like the like kind of god spirit figure actively leaving Akito. Yeah. So I wonder if that's the same kind of situation. It's interesting that in the narration of the story, the God story, God is never given like a gender ever. It like there's no gendered pronouns that are used. It's always like God did this and God did that. So it's kind of like seems to be this sort of, I mean, I don't know. It's an entity that it doesn't seem to.
Yeah, and like
although I think that also just comes from the use of the pronoun in Japanese, but like it doesn't seem, it's not implied either way any kind of whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's identity, like there's nothing like there's nothing like either super masculine or feminine about how the god appears in the story either. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it was more like a Ren thing to like have Akito be seen as a man inside the family. Like, it's not necessarily related to the curse, but I guess what it seems like the juunishi have this almost like another part of their identity that's gone when the curse is gone. So I feel like with Akito, it's like you have that and trying to like make ways to change things in the family and stuff. That's all like also interrelated with her own
it's
personal
just
identity.
also like I think it's also like tangled up because of how like fucked
Yeah,
up
exactly.
everything has been for probably centuries. Like
Probably
like the identity of
millennia.
it's like being God and being head of the household and being it's like there's just all this stuff that's like all tangled up now.
Yeah. She says the dialogue that I was trying to talk about before, but I didn't manage to come back to it, was that she says like, "It's father, isn't it just okay to be myself, like to just be me," which was like also something that I never noticed before and was like very touching, and I thought it was interesting. But yeah, that's why I kind of feel like what we're seeing is like some outward manifestation of her examining her own identity in a variety of different ways. Like, what does it mean to be a like head of the family, or just like a compassionate person, or like, you know, like what is the person that she wants to be now that she's not the god of the zodiac anymore?
Yeah.
Right? And like has the opportunity to have a new beginning. It's interesting.
Yeah, that specific dialogue of the like I could just be me is very like telling of that like Akira's issues there. Like we talked a bit about how like Akira didn't like do Akito any favors even though he was much kinder than her mother.
Yes.
Just in being like, you know, telling her so much. It's like, oh, you're a special child, you're God, everyone's gonna love you.
Everyone's waiting for you.
Yeah.
To be this person.
Yeah. So she's like, I don't have to be that special person anymore, right? I can just be a normal person. I can just be me. I don't know what me is yet, but
of all the we talk about all the juunishi being like not knowing how to people or whatever, quote unquote, but I feel like out of everyone, Akito knows the least about how to people and like doesn't even know who she is herself. Like I think that that's very it's a manifestation of like, you know, everybody trying to control her, like, and in a way like the maids and like Ren trying to control her, but then Akira trying to be like, no, like you're meant to be loved, you should be like confident or whatever. But it really took a turn in a way that made her just be like like this is the only thing that I have that makes people want to be with me.
Yeah, and it was still like telling her what she's supposed to be. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Even if
you're
it
supposed
was
to be loved.
Done in a more positive light.
Yes. Yeah, there was never like, you know, we talked about how like Akito's never had consequences for anything, and that Kureno was like, I need to like teach this person how to be, you know, like have consequences for her actions and stuff like that. So
the part she's talking about like, if it's common sense, why didn't anyone tell me? How am I supposed to know? Like, yeah, like I don't think anyone like said like, Akito, what do you want to be when you grow up?
They're just like, you're the head of the household. It's like the maids are like, well, Akira's like, you're God and everyone's gonna love you, and then the maids are like, you're the head of the household and you can't let your mother win, and then Ren is like, everything in your life is a sham. You know, like it's like, what? None of that's a realistic outlook on life.
Yeah,
not at all. I had something to say about this scene with Akito and Tohru. So I noticed that it says in my dialogue that I wrote for this for myself, I said Akito says like you were more beautiful than me or something like that. And in the Tokyo Pop, the reason I wrote it that way is because in the Tokyo Pop version it says you were prettier than me, and in the Yen Press version it says you were kinder than me. I think it has to do with like the word that's being used. So Akito describes Tohru in Japanese as kirei, which could mean like beautiful or clean, but it's like that's how it's normally like translated. Let me read you an excerpt. I googled this because I thought it was interesting. I've always wondered about this because you learn at least I learned pretty early on in like with Japanese studies that kirei can mean clean or beautiful. So I was just like googling connotation of kirei, and I found a really interesting book that's about Japanese design. It talks about different concepts like beauty, which I think is interesting. And it's by, hold on, let me find this. This is important. I've tried to find out if this was a credible source, and I'm pretty sure that it is. So it's by a person named, I don't know, I think Boyer Lafayette de Mont. The most Japanese sounding name.
Very Japanese name.
Yeah. He was a writer for a long time. Like he's written a bunch of books about Japanese culture, and like so he was the associate publisher for the Tokyo Journal. He was an editorial publications for like Japan Times and like all these like very high profile publications. So I'm pretty sure he does actually know, like he's a legit source. But anyway, this describes, let me read to you an excerpt about kire. A different Japanese term, kire, means both clean and pretty or beautiful, and is generally used in reference to the physical beauty of a person. The Japanese typically also use the word kire when describing things that appeal to their sense of what is right and good, as well as their aesthetic sense. And the connotation of kire comes from the Shinto concept that physical cleanness, neatness, and order are attributes of godliness, and respecting and revering of oneself as well as various gods. Kire, therefore, also plays a key role in design. Okay, that goes on to other stuff.
So cleanliness is next to godliness.
Basically, this is beauty on a higher or deeper level than what is normal for most other contexts. So I just thought it was interesting because I thought the translation of like pretty just like doesn't really cut it, because it's like not really what Akito's talking about. It's the same as like, so when they have their confrontation, or Tohru's like, I'm dirty, but I think like what they're talking about is this more like, I guess, I don't know. It's interesting that one translation says prettiness and one translation says kindness, because I think like kindness is getting more at what they are actually talking about, which is like Akito saying that Tohru is a better person. You're like a better person than me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to do with her like physical appearance, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. I think like the reason I take issue with pretty is that it seems that to me has a connotation of just like one's physical appearance, as opposed to like beauty as being like something that's like an intangible marker of quality. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's kind of what Akito's getting at.
Because people do say like, will like describe someone as like a beautiful person, like encompassing like their personality and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone who's pretty or something pretty. That's like just attractive or good looking. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. It's another random Japanese thing to discuss that I think is personally interesting. I'm not an expert, but I thought it's interesting, conceptual, and it's probably really difficult to translate because I don't think it's about. But that's my take on it. Anyway, that's enough about my rant.
Cool.
Yeah. Did you learn something new about cleanliness?
Yes.
I think it's also one of those things that just like it has like just like a more expansive meaning in Japanese culture, like that specific word, which is why I looked it up. So it's Tohru's beauty, more inner, I think, than outer necessarily.
Language be like that sometimes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Also, this book seems really interesting if you're interested in that kind of thing, because it has like, it goes through all the concepts, like, you know, like wabi and sabi and like all of those, like it's just like a section about all these different like aesthetic but like the thing about, I guess, like Japanese culture and art and design is like it's beyond aesthetic. Like that's why kire has such like a deeper meaning. Anyway, very interesting. Recommend, based on my short reading of it. All right. Anyway, I'd like to move on. Can we talk about Akito and Shigure's scene together? Let's stay on the topic of Akito. So yeah, I noticed, listen, I've taken note of Shigure's very kind smile at the end of this scene. I would like everyone to know. I was like, is this the only time we've seen him with like a genuine like kind smile, except for maybe when he was like a kid?
Yeah.
Like the scene with them as kids? Like I was trying to think if there's another time where it was like an actual, like, not like kind of annoyed or rueful or like, oh, I'm such a stinker kind of smile. You know what I mean? He seemed genuinely happy with what Akito's doing, which was nice.
The whole scene, they are like, it's a pretty genuine scene between the two of them, like in general.
Like Shigure's kind of being an asshole considering that Akito is so insecure, but he's like, I'm not, I'm just teasing
it's
you,
kind
like,
of
chill, you know?
It's kind of in the way though that like they've been like trading like much harsher barbs for years, so it seems more like what passes as like gentle teasing for the two of them, because like
instead of actually insulting each other and
like, I mean, like
shouting,
like if I'll be free from your bad behavior, then I will be relieved. Like that's a pretty like, you know, mild teasing kind of thing compared to what we've seen between them before. So
feels like Shakespearean, you know, taunt. But yeah, it does. It's very mild. It's not just like, you know, you need to like Akito is always like, you're never nice to me and whatever, and Shigure is like, I don't know, like, just like, fine, if you're gonna be this way, then fine, like, just leaves. Like, it's kind of, that's what their dynamic was like before. So.
Yeah, and like Akito's being like, you know, honest on her end too with her
that's
thing
true.
where she's just like, like, this is what I'm gonna do, and it's like, and you know, she's definitely, you know, still insecure, where she's like, you're gonna be relieved like everyone else, but like, it's definitely like, you know, again, they kind of see, you know, they seem like people who like are fond of each other,
as opposed to just not.
Yeah. As opposed to really, really bitter exes.
Yes. On again, off again
Yeah.
exes. Yeah. I think it's interesting how Akito thinks that Shigure's love is just like everyone else's. Like the way that she asks that and has that like expectation that he's just gonna leave or whatever. I mean, it just shows like how deeply ingrained like the things that she's afraid of are, like that her father said and stuff. But I guess it's noteworthy that, you know, she doesn't necessarily think of Shigure's feelings as being different than the others.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like, yeah, it's obviously that something she's kind of insecure about, which definitely makes sense. Just like she's talked about how like she's afraid of, you know, the bond breaking because she doesn't have any guarantee that anyone will love her. So it makes sense that like she would assume that Shigure is, you know, one of those as well.
Yeah, of those people. Yes, of everyone. Yes, he is an everyone. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was noteworthy. I don't think it's like necessarily a specific comment. I think it's just again demonstrating Akito's fear. But
yeah. I also like the little touch like earlier when the kids are talking at school, and like Yuki's wondering if like Akito's like struggling through all this by herself, and Haru's like, "Where's Shigure these days?" And it's like, "Oh, he's out a lot."
And then he's like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and then it's like when he's like, "Ah," and Kyo's like, "Ah," and then Haru's like, "Ah." It's like, oh, Yuki gets it. I like how he like put it together, which is really funny. I think that's what's happening, at least in that scene. And then he goes and uses it to tease Kyo, which is great. Yuki's good at picking up on these things. I'm sure he knows.
But it's kind of a nice touch to show that like he is like, you know, trying to support her in this trying time in his own way.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's also interesting that Haru comments in that conversation like everyone at the main house is taking notice of how different Akito's being these days, and that he says that she's trying to like push for stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. It's nice that they're commenting on it. Like Akito's really making a stir, so we get to see that.
Yeah. She's trying and continuing to try.
Is this Shigure's redemption moment? Okay, so we're done talking about Akito? Good. Sounds great. Let's talk about Kyo and Tohru and how great this is. Can we talk about how great it is?
Sure.
I mean, it's great. No, I'm just kidding. Here's my notes that I made about Kyo and Tohru and that it was cute, which is I love Kyo's earnest expression when he says I love their expressions in this whole all the scenes where they're together, but especially Kyo's like kind of earnest expression when he's saying that he wants to be with her. And then my other favorite one, which I know I talked about in spoilers, is when he pulls off the bracelet and Tohru's just like sobbing. That's great. It occurred to me while I was reading this time, not even last time when we talked about it in spoilers, that Tohru doesn't know about the cat's room yet. Like she doesn't know that it's destroyed yet. So probably this is like all the more exciting and touching for her, I think. He just shows up and he's like, I love you. Also, by the way, the cat's room's destroyed. So I
was gonna say maybe someone told her, but if she started sobbing every time someone mentioned Kyo's name in the hospital, probably not.
Kyo's like, or Yuki's like, oh, by the way, I heard about the cat's room, and then she just like runs out.
Yeah. He's like, wait, it's a good thing.
Come back. That's really funny. Oh, poor baby. She's like, I'm gonna smile, and it's like, nope.
I know the ripping of the bracelet is symbolic, but every time I think of it, I'm like, I would have just like taken it off to try it first.
It's like, oh shit, he's gotta like put it back together.
Then symbolically destroyed it, you know, just to make sure.
Then there's like, then there's like one, well, you're not Kyo, so I know you voice acted him once in a play for this podcast, but
like, I'm not Kyo, but I play him in a podcast play.
You're like, I was a prince, god damn it. Yeah, but then it's like, what if one rolls away? I mean, they're out on the street, like, could get crushed by a car. Those are the bones of a priest or whatever. Like, that's a big deal.
Get taken away by a crow to make a nest. Like, ooh, shiny.
But yeah, he rips off the bracelet and it's great.
Yeah. Imagery-wise, it can't be beat.
It's really great aesthetically. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Practicality-wise, whatever.
Yeah. I just really love the end of that chapter where they're hugging and then realize that nothing's happened.
Yeah. I was just like, and then what do I write now? And nothing happens. Yeah, there's it's just like that panel and it's like you just see like, maybe it's the shitty Tokyo Pop printing, but you just kind of see Toru's eyes, like you just see their eyes are wide and then it's like, just a thing of Akito.
Yeah, it's like they're hugging, their eyes are closed, they're happy, and then it's like there's like there's enough space that it kind of implies a little time passing, and then it shows them like both kind of open their eyes in shock.
Like, what? Yeah. It's great. I'm gonna look at it again. Here it is. Yeah, it's like they're both so like happy and relieved, and then you see their eyes. Actually, you can see both their faces, so it's a lot clearer than I thought. I think it's the beginning of the next chapter where it opens, or like the next part where it's like not as clear. But
yeah,
that's the one I was thinking of. When it comes back from in the next chapter. But yeah, you see their eyes, and they're both like super wide.
Yeah.
So good. You were like, I wonder how much it would suck to wait for this to be released like chapter by chapter. It's like, then what happens? Then what? I could just scream at the like Hana to Yume like print.
It's like letter to the editor.
Now what? Can you imagine if like Natsuki Takaya had Twitter back then? Just flooded with comments. What's gonna happen? I can't stand it. Must be so hard to be connected to your fans immediately on the regular now.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was great. That's all I had to say.
Yeah.
I have a similar note about Yuki and Machi, which is just a shiny-eyed emoji in my notes. We talked a long time ago, I think, in spoilers, about how Yuki has this. He tends to go and tell Machi about the curse. And then it becomes a different kind of, like, confession.
Machi's kind of like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm trying to be supportive.
Yes. She's trying so hard. She's like, so you won't see this person again? Like, so... She's like, I have something that I want to ask you anyway.
Yeah. It's like, moving on.
Yeah. They're very chill, Machi and Yuki, you know? It's cute.
That's like Yuki's, like, how he's basically, like seeing Kyo being like, I have things I have to do. Yuki's like, I should do some stuff too.
Yeah. I love, it's not related to their character growth or anything, but the scene where Yuki's like, hey, and then Kyo's like, bah! And like drops his toes or whatever. It's wonderful.
I love their like new aggressive friendship.
I like how Kyo also comments on it too. He's like, man, you're really not pulling your punches or whatever.
Yeah. But it's like that conversation like with Kyo and Haru and Yuki, like it's just a conversation between some guys hanging out. Like it's not really like there's nothing like aggressive about it, even when he's just like, you only told me now. Like
Kyo screams a lot in the last couple of chapters, but it's all like, it's like, someone just tell me what's going on. Like it's not like it's not like angry. He's never angry. Like he's kind of like friend angry, where he's like, what the hell, everybody's being mean. You know. I love how he runs straight. He's still panting when he talks to Uo and Hana, and he's like, can I go see her?
It's like I made the joke like after their little like come to Jesus fight with each other, about how like Yuki being like you're my friend now, and I'm way meaner to my friends. Just ask Kakeru. It's like it really is pretty similar to the way he talks to Kakeru. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah, if Kakeru lived with him, they'd definitely be sassy on the reg. Yeah. Like, it would be just like this. Yeah, so, but I love that. Hey, I said hey. Hey. He's so caught up in his nervousness. And tells him to just be his normal stupid self. Yes. Great encouragement. Yeah. The Kyo's inner monologue when he's walking to the hospital is also interesting. It's, to me, I always interpret it as being really funny, where he's like, what I like about her, what I like about those things, and how much did I like them? Like, I think that it's hilarious, but I don't think it's meant to be like that, because it's in the dark dialogue box. So I think it's meant to be more serious. Like, he's actually worrying a lot about seeing her. Yeah. I think Toru's is similar. Hold on, I have to double check. But I thought that was also interesting, because I think that it's funny how nervous he is about seeing her. But,
I think Taurus is like that too, because she's like, oh, just stop crying. Like, I don't want him to be mad at me. Like, they have all these sort of like mixed, what seems to be like mixed positive and extremely negative sort of emotions that are tied to these thoughts. That if we're to use our understanding of Takaya's visual language that we've seen so far, which is interesting.
Yeah,
I think it's like a realistic romantic tension.
Yeah, I feel like Kyo's like inner monologue is like another representation of his like insecurities about like deserving love at all. He's like, maybe I don't love her, maybe I'm fooling myself and stuff, and then like
maybe I am disillusioned.
And then he sees her, he's like, oh fuck.
Nope. It's like, that's a no. Yeah. The scene where he sees her is also amazing, where it's just like so like bubbly, and she's in this like new dress, and they make eye contact. You can tell that it's like a prolonged like moment because there's multiple panels of them looking at each other. It's so good.
Prime shoujo bubble territory. Even though they're like shoujo hexagons or something.
It's a lens flare.
Yeah. It's a,
what do they call them?
It's a J.J. Abrams movie.
It was a J.J. Abrams movie, wouldn't it have that bass noise, like sound effect in the... Tohru comes out of the hospital and makes eye contact with him, and it's like, brrr. There's a scene of them running, and it's like, duh. I just briefly talked about it. I mean, like, kind of went through it in the narration, but I love how you see all these scenes of all the other juunishi, like, experiencing the curse breaking. Like, we see, like, Ayame and Mine, and I love how Ayame is like, I was born to love you. It's so great.
Yeah. I take that as confirmation that Mine did know about the curse, by the way. Because, like, she's
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Because, like, she, like, you can see her eyes widen, like, as, like, the time passes, like, before he even says anything. Like, she obviously realizes that it's significant that he's able to, like, hold her without incident.
without turning into a snake.
Yes.
I like how he's just casually looking at the couch, and he's like, Mine, get in here.
Yeah. He's just like, I can feel this immediately.
Yes. It was like Kyo with the bracelet. Like, he like, kind of stops for a second, and then immediately looks at the bracelet and pulls it off.
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny. I think the implication is supposed to be that, like, what Yuki feels at first is the lack of anyone else. But I like to think that, like, everyone else is like, I immediately know I'm broken from the curse, and he's just like, I feel funny.
I feel weird. Yeah, it's so funny. It was funny when I read it. I was like, he's like, I feel weird somehow. Maybe I'm just nervous. Yeah. And then, nobody. It's like Rin, when we were joking about Rin waking up being like, did I fall asleep? We were like, no, you passed out.
Yeah.
Yuki. Yeah, and then there's like an extended scene with the rat returning to like God's hands, which is kind of interesting because we also get the cat story, how the cat was so significant kind of after that. So that chapter still has the idea that like the rat is the closest one to God or whatever. But I guess the rat was the first to drink.
Yeah,
so.
it's like the rat was the first one to like to dedicate himself to that promise. Whereas the cat was like, I don't want this.
The cat was like, I don't give my consent.
Yeah. So for some reason it wasn't until like we read it this time that I parsed that why Hiro and Akito were talking to each other was like Hiro telling about his curse breaking. I was just like, why are they talking?
Yeah, it does seem like unnecessary.
Yeah.
But I think it's used to show how Akito's changing. Because Akito's not mad. Akito doesn't beg him to stay like the others. Yeah,
it's just like the conversation, like, because it doesn't say anything about the curse breaking. I didn't like make the connection since it had been so long since we like saw Hiro's curse break.
Yeah.
I didn't really like make the connection until like this time when I read it. But I think I thought it was like the beginning of him like calling in people because it transitions into like Yuki going like Akito wants to talk to everyone. But like now I'm like, oh, I get it.
Oh. I just like didn't remember it because it's clearly not as. There's so many things that come later in these chapters that are like those are the things that I remember when I think about this part of the story, like not that one scene.
Yeah.
But it was interesting.
Yeah, I do think it's a nice touch to have like that scene, and then like the next thing we see is Akito going like, I'm gonna end it, and like thinking about the already broken curses where like there obviously was like a transition in that to like, you know, she was so desperate to the first two, and to have her like calmly talking to Hiro and
also complimenting him on his attitude.
And then being
it's like beyond begging him to stay. Just being like, I liked that about you, and like that's the end of the scene. It also helps support Haru's kind of like when he says, "Oh, everybody's taking notice of Akito being different now."
Mm-hmm.
So, just gives a little extra insight, I guess. Like, oh, Kagura's also there too. She's like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, it's cute that Kisa's just waiting out there. She's here for like moral support.
Yes. I mean, if I was gonna go see Akito, I would need backup.
Yeah.
More than one person for sure. I also like Shigure, but speaking of the curse breaking, Shigure is like, so this is how it feels,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, it's kind of, he talked about how like being cursed was never like that big a deal for him.
Yeah. He looks upset.
Yeah,
though.
he's just kind of like, oh.
Yeah. It's like, ow.
Yeah. Plus, he knew it was coming.
That's true. He did have advanced warning, unlike everybody else. I think it's kind of interesting that, like, it seems like what's implied is that Akito, like, the person who's possessed by God, has the ability to just let things go, like, to let it go, as if she was kind of in control, whereas the other... Well, I mean, I guess it kind of seems like the animal spirits were also able to do that because Kureno's curse broke. Like, it's not really stated outright, like, the way that I think it is shown with kind of the God, like, departing from Akito and, like, releasing her as well. But, like, it seems like they kind of, like, have the ability to, like, relinquish the bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
I do
it
think...
seems like Akito's kind of aware of that somehow, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like the others weren't.
Yeah, I do think it's, like, kind of deliberately kept vague, like, how it works.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
we talked about how, like, there's never really a solid answer.
What is the curse? We'll never know.
Yeah, there's never really a solid answer on, like, why the curse was started breaking. We hear a couple people, like, give their theories about it. Like, oh, it's just old, it's wearing down, and, like, stuff like that. But, yeah, I do think it's pretty clear that, like, the person who is God obviously has the control to... the ability to like let it go, which makes sense since God's the one like the promise is made
God
to.
started it.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, and also like God did the ceremony to like kind of create that like the bond, that magical bond, I guess, in the first place. So
yeah,
it would make sense that God has the ability to release them, but I just that's also something I never really thought about until this time.
Yeah, it's also kind of interesting how like we spent like the back half of the series with like Tohru being like, I want to break the curse. And it's like she's not the one to directly release everyone from the curse, but she is kind of the one who broke the curse because she got through to Akito.
Yeah, she was the only one. Well, it's like they all said, like Shigure alluded to at the beach and stuff. It's like, and what Kazuma alluded to,
like people kept telling like Tohru, it's like, oh, you just need to be yourself. Like that's the best thing you can do, and like that did turn out to be like what broke the curse.
It's true.
Tohru being herself.
And they also said like, well, the time you spend with them will help them form a new bond, which also worked in Akito's case, where she was able to connect with Akito, in her like her own personal way, like you said, and was able to show Akito that there are people in the world who will accept her that aren't just tied to her through a magical curse.
Yeah.
That she doesn't need to be afraid of, people in the world. Tohru reassured Akito that change is scary, but it's not like there are still people who care about you, I guess. Yeah. Even if things change. That's how we get kind of like Toru's apology, too, of being like, I know that you wanted to... It's like this, it's an interesting acknowledgement, like so the conversation between Akito and Tohru is interesting because, Akito's like, you were more beautiful than me, and Toru's like, don't just like separate things into right and wrong or beautiful or not. Like, it's almost like it's kind of a meta discussion about how regardless of intentions, there isn't necessarily like a right or wrong in a situation. Like there are all these kind of like shades of gray of what's good and bad and like what's the better outcome or not. Like
and also that like even if there is a clear right and wrong, it's like like people getting hurt is still like a valid thing. Like I like the like specific thing where she says like it doesn't matter if it was right or wrong, I still hurt you a lot. Because I think like no one would argue that Toru's goal was the right goal.
Yes.
But like it did cause Akito a lot of pain.
Yeah. That's true. So I don't know. Yeah, I enjoyed that scene more than I remembered enjoying it this time when we read it. I don't think I have any other things that I want to talk about that aren't spoilery. Although I don't really have spoilers either, but but we can chat about what's coming.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've only got like a handful of chapters left, so there's not that many.
There's
It's not even really spoilers at this
5.
point, so much as here's what's next.
Yeah. Well, let's do that. So next time
Okay.
we're going to talk about 132 and 133.
Woo.
Woo! So thank you for listening. Next time we'll talk about those, and we will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello. I
Hi.
thought I edited the spoiler section, but I didn't. Oh! The spoiler is that Shigure gave Akito the kimono?
Mhm.
It's a kimono that she wears later.
Yeah.
I put Akito's gender reveal, and I just realized that sounds like a baby. Like,
Yeah.
That's really funny.
She's like, I brought you all a cake, and if you cut into it, you'll see it's pink.
Someone shoot this balloon. The confetti will tell you something about me, and it's all pink. That's really funny. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. So that is technically a spoiler. It's a very minor thing. That's something that comes up. But and also like the kind of slow ad of like more feminine attire, I think, in Akito's look also leading up to this point, which is why I brought it up and we discussed it this time. Also, so the note that says it, yeah, that's what the, well, I guess the meeting is also about the curse breaking and whatever. And then it says Tohru back at school.
Yeah.
Curse
I guess
action.
also, like, little spoiler is that Tohru collects all the beads and
Right. Oh
they
yeah, I meant
keep
to
'em.
say that. Yeah. Kyo says that narrates that she picked up the beads. She was the one who picked them up.
and they like keep them like next to her, like,
Photo of her mom.
yeah, her parents' pictures.
Yeah, so cute. There's and then after that, after the stuff we're gonna talk about next time, there's just like their date, and there's also like the final chapter is like what happened to Kyoko while she was dying. So we get, it's still, there was, Kyoko said that she wouldn't forgive him, and like the final spoiler is that she said, if you don't keep your promise, I won't forgive you, not just I won't forgive you. So that's still to come too.
Yep.
The last spoiler, and then that's it. Then what will we do?
Panic.
Everyone freak out. Oh, the anime's still going. We'll watch the anime.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about something else. Yeah, I don't think that's it. That's everything that I want to talk about. Is there anything exciting that's coming from the there's no more maid. That was her last scene, right? The old maid.
No, I think she's got one more.
One more? She just won't quit.
Yeah, because in this one was just kind of like Akito being like, fine, but I'm leaving. But and then she has the thing where Akito like offers her the hand that Tohru offered Akito. So
Cool.
the maid rejects it.
What an
But yeah,
asshole.
she's got one more scene.
Her last hurrah. Such a prominent character. Somehow, in the end.
Yeah. Her last scene actually shows her fairly sympathetically.
That's good.
compared
I
to
mean,
the
she's
rest,
just
at
as
least
fucked up
I
as everybody
remember.
else,
Yeah.
so, you know, whatever.
Yeah, like that's basically what she says. She's like, I'm old and I've lived in this house doing this for all my life and I can't change now.
Yeah, same as Akito, but
Yeah.
Akito is like, I'm going to change. The maid is like, no. Yeah.
Maid's like, I don't know, I was going to pick a ridiculous age, but everyone's like, I'm 103, I can't change now.
I'm
It's too late for
127.
me.
I'm the god of the zodiac. And I had to walk uphill both ways to have those banquets.
Yeah.
Anyway.
In my day, the animals didn't question God.
In my day, I told everyone what to do. Oh, wait, that's still happening. I mean, she outlived Akira, and she's living with Akito, so, like, he must have been really young, or she's really, really old. I guess she'd only have to be. But she looks older, like, she looks old in the thing with Akira. That's why.
Yeah, she still looks like she looked younger in the flashback, but still older. Like,
not young.
Yeah, like
still.
she's still obviously like a prominent figure in the household by that point.
That's true, yeah.
Like,
Her
she's not some
status is
rookie
indicative of
maid.
her age.
Yeah.
Some upstart maid who let a poor girl out of a room when she was dying. So
Called
sad.
the doctor after God stabbed somebody.
Yeah, exactly. The heroine maid.
Yes, the good maid.
The good maid. The Good Maid is the sequel to The Maid Return, or whatever. The Maid Returns. Yeah. Continuity jokes. Okay, good. All right, I don't have anything else to talk about, so I guess that's it. Until next time. Yay! Good. Everybody send your questions. That was fun.
Yes.
I think we can do it again. On that note, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time for 132 and 133.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Blowing raspberries in Bowie's tummy.
You gots to.
He's got a fluffy tum.
Yeah. I feel like if you blow raspberries in a cat's tummy, you would just lose an eye.
It's pretty easy to do that with Bowie too. You have to sneak up on him. Because the beak is kind of eye level if you
That's
kiss
true.
his tummy. So
You could pluck them out. Yeah,
yeah,
you are putting yourself in the danger zone.
you gotta time it right.